A boy stands with a toy train and a bright smile. The photo is marked December 24th, 1902, taken at a train station in Chicago. At first glance, it looks like a moment of pure holiday happiness. When restoration specialists cleaned the damaged image in 2024, they uncover a message carved into the train. 7 small words showed this wasn't present. It was a final moment, and the child in the picture would not live to see Christmas morning. In March 2024, an estate company in Evanston, Illinois, was preparing to throw away a box of old, unclaimed photos. Everything else in the home had been sold or trashed, but the pictures were too damaged and too old for anyone to want them. These were faces no one recognized anymore. Sarah Mitchell, the company's owner, was about to discard the box when one photo stopped her. It showed a boy around 9 or 10 standing on what looked like a train platform. His winter coat was far too big for him, and he held an expensive toy locomotive tightly against his chest. Even though water stains, tears, and discoloration covered most of the image, his smile still came through. Something about his expression stuck with Sarah. He looked happy, but also delicate, like the toy meant more to him than it appeared. On the back, barely readable, were the words Chicago and Northwestern Station. December 24th, 1902. Sarah reached out to Dr. Michael Chun at the Chicago History Museum. He specialized in early 1900 photography and the city's history. As soon as he saw the picture, he recognized the old Union Station building, the one that burned down in 1911. He studied the print under magnification. It was professionally taken, likely outdoors in the cold. The boy's clothing suggested he came from a poor background, but the train he held was a high-end German model, something working families could rarely afford. Michael's team began restoring the photo using tools that could recover details hidden beneath the damage. As the image cleared, they realized the train wasn't just any toy. There was an engraving on its side, etched carefully into the metal. After adjusting the enhancement, Michael read the inscription, "To Danny, love always." December 24th, 1902. One of his assistants said it must have been a Christmas gift, probably given that same day. But as Michael sharpened the image further, they spotted another line in a shakier hand beneath the first. It read, "Remember me." The team fell silent. This picture wasn't capturing a holiday treat. It felt like a farewell. Michael searched Chicago newspapers from late December 1902 for anything involving Union Station, Christmas Eve, or a boy named Danny. What he found sent him into months of research. A short article from December 26, 1902, reported that an unidentified boy around 10 had died at Union Station on Christmas Eve. He was found near the platform holding a toy train. The cause of death was exposure and severe malnutrition. Police could not find his family, and he carried no identification. No one claimed him. Michael looked at the smiling child in the photograph and realized no one had even known his name. His research led him to the history of the orphan trains. Between 1854 and 1929, more than 200,000 children without stable homes were moved from overcrowded cities in the east to rural areas in the Midwest and West. Many were placed with families, though some ended up working rather than being treated as full members of a household. Chicago played a major role in this movement. Groups like the Children's Aid Society collected children living on the streets, cleaned them up, and sent them west with the hope of giving them a fresh start. Records show that on December 24th, 1902, an orphan train was scheduled to leave Union Station for Nebraska at 6 p.m. 47 children, ages 6 to 14, were listed as passengers. One name stopped Michael, Daniel McCarthy, age 10, no known family. Michael contacted the Nebraska State Historical Society for any files related to that trip. 3 weeks later, he received a folder containing a report from Helen Crawford, the supervisor who oversaw the children on that train. Her January 1903 report described the events of that night. She wrote that the children were gathered at Union Station around 4 p.m. for the 6 p.m. departure. Daniel, one of the older children, had been living on the streets for about 2 years after losing his mother to illness. He was extremely underweight and showed signs of a cold-related condition, but a doctor approved him for travel. Around 5:30 p.m., a man approached her asking about Daniel. He said his name was William Hartley, a railroad employee who had gotten to know the boy over the past months. He explained that Daniel often slept in maintenance areas during winter and that he had grown fond of him. Mr. Hartley brought a wrapped gift, a toy train he had bought with his own money. He asked if he could give it to Daniel before the boy boarded the train. Helen agreed. She wrote that what happened next was one of the most touching moments she had seen in her work. Mr. Hartley knelt beside Daniel and gave him the train, telling him it came from someone who believed he deserved better days ahead. Daniel's face lit up. For a moment, he looked like any child enjoying a special holiday surprise. Mr. Hartley then asked the station photographer to take a picture. He paid for the photo and handed the print to Daniel. At 5:50 p.m., Daniel began to struggle with his breathing. Despite quick help and the arrival of a doctor, he collapsed. He was pronounced dead at 6:15 p.m., 15 minutes after the train was supposed to leave. The doctor said Daniel's body had simply reached its limit. He had endured hunger, cold winters, and untreated illness for too long. He had likely been fading for weeks, maybe longer. He may have been holding on out of hope. Daniel passed away, holding the toy train. His hands were wrapped so tightly around it that it was hard to remove. In his final moments, he had something given with care, something that showed someone saw value in him. Mr. Hartley was heartbroken. He paid for Daniel's burial himself. Michael continued searching for more information about the railroad worker who had shown the boys such kindness. Census records from 1900 listed a William Hartley, age 34, working for the Chicago and Northwestern Railway and living in a modest boarding house near Union Station. Then Michael found a letter in the Chicago Daily News dated December 28, 1902, just 4 days after Daniel's death. It was written by William Hartley. The headline read, "A Railroad Worker's Christmas Grief." In the letter, Mr. Hartley explained how he met Daniel. He first saw the boys sleeping in a maintenance shed in October. He said his first instinct was to report it because workers weren't supposed to allow people to stay in the station. But when he woke Daniel, he saw a child who was dangerously thin, freezing and exhausted. Mr. Hartley brought him food whenever he could. They talked during these visits. Daniel told him about his mother, who worked as a seamstress before she passed away. He talked about living outdoors, being bullied by older kids, and being pushed away by police. He said he believed things would eventually improve. When Mr. Hartley learned that Daniel was scheduled for the orphan train on Christmas Eve, he felt hopeful that the boy might finally find a home with warm food and a family. He wanted Daniel to have something meaningful to bring with him. He spent 2 weeks of his pay on the toy train, saying it was worth every cent to see Daniel smile. He wrote that the boy passed away just minutes later. The doctor told him Daniel wouldn't have survived the winter, even if he had reached Nebraska. But Mr. Hartley said he held on to one thought. For about 10 minutes on Christmas Eve, Daniel had something he had never experienced before. A gift, a photograph, and proof that his life mattered. Mr. Hartley buried him in Graceland Cemetery and paid for a proper headstone with Daniel's full name and dates. Born 1892, died 1902. He ended by saying the boy deserved to be remembered. William wrote his letter because he wanted people to know Daniel existed, that his life mattered, and that losing him on Christmas Eve should have moved everyone to care more. He wrote that many children in Chicago lived the same way Daniel had, sleeping outside, going hungry, and struggling where people often walked past without noticing. He said he would always regret not doing more. He had given Daniel a toy train when what the boy really needed was stability, medical help, and a future, but at least he gave something. He asked what the rest of the world was giving in return. That Christmas, he buried a child no one else had claimed. He wrote that he hoped one day no child would pass away alone in a train station, holding the only gift they ever received. The letter was signed with his name and his railroad employer. It caused a small wave of public concern. Some families donated to charities. A few children were helped off the streets. But by January, attention faded and daily routines resumed. Michael later found William Hartley's death certificate from 1924. William lived another 22 years. He never married and stayed with the railroad until he passed. In his will, He left the $347 he had saved to the Children's Aid Society with a simple note asking that it be used for children like Daniel. Michael also tracked down the actual toy train Daniel held in the photograph. After Daniel's burial, William kept the train, unable to let go of the only thing that connected him to the boy. When William died, the train went to his landlady. It changed hands through several estates before landing in the collection of a man named Thomas Morrison. Thomas told Michael he had owned the train for 15 years without knowing anything about its past. He assumed it was simply a well-built Markler model from the early 1900s. He agreed to loan it to the Chicago History Museum. When the train arrived, Michael examined it closely. Inside the small cab, hidden where only the person holding it would notice, he found another carving. "My name is Daniel McCarthy. I am 10 years old. I lived at Union Station. Mr. Hartley gave me this train. He said I was worth remembering. If I die, please tell someone I was here. Please remember me." Daniel had carved those lines himself, likely using a bit of metal in the short time between receiving the gift and his death. Michael realized the boy must have known or feared he would not survive the night. Holding the locomotive, Michael reread Daniel's words, then turned to the restored photo. Daniel's smile was warm and real. Looking closer, Michael saw that the boy wasn't facing the camera. He was looking at William Hartley, standing just outside the frame. Michael continued researching the other children listed on that orphan train. Some found supportive homes in Nebraska, while others faced long hours of work or difficult treatment. 3 more children died soon after arrival from the lasting effect of hunger and illness. The orphan train system continued for decades, moving thousands of children west. Many groups involved believed they were offering opportunities, but results varied widely. Some children flourished. Others struggled. Many were simply too weakened by years of hardship to recover. Michael visited Daniel's grave at Graceland Cemetery. William had kept his promise with a simple headstone marked with Daniel's name and dates. Someone still left flowers there from time to time, long after William's passing. In December 2024, exactly 122 years after Daniel died, the Chicago History Museum opened an exhibition titled Remembered: Daniel McCarthy and America's Forgotten Children. The display included a restored photo, the toy train, William's letter, and Daniel's carved message. It also shared the experiences of many children from the orphan train era. In January 2025, an 87-year-old woman named Patricia Brennan visited the museum. She spent nearly an hour in front of Daniel's photograph before telling Michael that her grandmother, Catherine Walsh, had been on the same train Daniel was meant to board. Catherine had been 9 at the time and had seen William give Daniel the locomotive. She later told her family that Daniel wished her a good home even though he was clearly suffering. Catherine grew up with a kind family in Nebraska and lived in 96, but she never forgot Daniel. Patricia donated her grandmother's diary, which included an entry saying she promised to remember him. The exhibition sparked nationwide attention. Donations to children's charities rose sharply, and families across the country shared their own stories. A digital archive was created to preserve them. In June 2025, Chicago dedicated a memorial bench near Union Station with a plaque honoring Daniel and all children who deserve better. Today, Daniel's train sits in the museum, and fresh flowers appear every December 24th.